Chinese peace proposal in Ukraine, which I think is an interesting topic. You guys want to go there for a minute?
Sure.
Yeah, all right. Can I take a shot at explaining what the Chinese were doing? I think it was a clever diplomatic maneuver by the Chinese to try and grab the moral high ground here. They're basically saying, listen, we're interested in peace. We're going to put forward a proposal. The Americans fell into the trap of basically dismissing it right away, throwing cold water on it. The U.S. State Department has done this twice before. Remember, back in March of last year, Naftali Bennett from Israel tried to negotiate a peace deal, and he himself said that it was the West, the Americans, who rejected it. He thought it had a 50-50 chance of succeeding. You then had the peace process in Istanbul, Turkey, with Erdogan presiding over it. You had the Istanbul communique, which, again, they were very close to having a peace deal, and Blinken and the U.S. threw cold water on it. So what's happening here is that the U.S. is not playing its traditional role as peacemaker, where we try to go in and mediate these conflicts. We're doing the opposite of that. We're throwing cold water on the peace process. Now, why are we not acting as the mediator? I'll tell you why. Because we are a co-belligerent. This is an American proxy war that we're fighting against Russia. So we have no interest in mediating a peace process. And moreover, we're not trusted to mediate a peace process because we're one of the effectively one of the combatants.
So it's a PR strategy by Xi Jinping to take the global moral high ground. I agree with that. I said it on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. Like this is amazing that he's starting the peace process. We want regime change. We want to deplete and we want to ankle Putin. They want to keep him in the game. The more despots there are, the worse, the better it is for them. They would like to keep the Legion of Doom going. They don't want to see regime change and democracy in Russia eventually.
I don't think that's how they view it. But
listen, JCal is very close to getting it. But here's where I would disagree with you a little bit.
Getting what?
Let me explain.
Okay. Go ahead.
So from the Chinese point of view, the war in Ukraine is like manna from heaven.
Henry Kissinger.
They love this war. Number one, because it's interfering with the U.S.'s pivot to Asia. We were basically in the process of redeploying all of our force, all of our military to containing them in East Asia, and now we're bogged down in Europe. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, we are massively depleting our stockpiles of weapons. We've used something like 9 years of Stingers and 5 years of Javelins, and we're running out of ammunition. I can't believe it, but we're running out of artillery. The Russians actually have a 6-to-1 artillery advantage, which is why they're actually doing much better in this war than people are acknowledging. We should come back to that. The last thing is that the Chinese now are benefiting from the economic sanctions on Russia because Russia is now selling them oil and gas and all of their minerals at a big discount.
A subsidy. Yeah.
So this has been a wonderful thing from the Chinese standpoint. So this is the problem with us thinking in this Marvel movie way of the world in which we're the super friends and we're against the Legion of Doom, is because there is no natural alliance in the real world between China, Russia, and Iran. These are three very different regimes with different types of governments who naturally would not get along. They would be adversaries. Naturally, they'd be suspicious of each other, as China and Russia were during the Cold War. But we have pushed them closer together. This is the problem with having this overly moralistic view of foreign policy.
Over to you, Jason. What do you think?
Is there a question? What's the question?
Yeah, I mean, you frame it as the Legion of Doom, so just explain.
Well, it's the axis of evil. The 50% of
Look, let me tell you.
Hold on.
Lex
I'll finish
Luthor
my
and
sentence.
Brainiac would not be working together if it weren't for us declaring on war on both of them at the same time.
Actually, Pakistan, Iran, and China work together on nuclear technology. So they do, when it's convenient for them, work on things like nuclear bombs. So there is an affiliation, but you're correct. They're the 50% of the planet, of humans on this planet, who live under authoritarians. And so they're authoritarians. They're always going to think in their own interest. They're always going to think in their own interest above their own peoples, let alone the people of another country. They don't care. They don't care about human rights. They don't care about the rights of humans. And they certainly don't care about the rights of humans in another country. And the West is on a noble mission to spread democracy in the world. And that is a noble thing worth fighting for and is worth defending free countries from despots. I know that you are a fan of these folks, Sachs, apparently, and you think they should be able to run amok. I will take the other side of it. I think the West should act in unison. The only criticism I have is that we are not acting in unison. I would like to see the West, instead of sending Biden to Ukraine,
hold on.
I would rather see, I would like to have 20
you've
of
talked
them.
enough. You just accused me of somehow being fans of these people. Where did I ever say that I was a fan of Xi in China or Putin or the Ayatollahs in Iran? Hold on.
You said we provoked Putin. Putin invaded another country.
Hold on.
You said we caused it.
I said,
he chose
hold on
to
a
do
second.
it.
Hold on a second. I am arguing for a geopolitical strategy that benefits the United States. I'm on Team America. And your policy of driving these people into an axis of evil is foolish for the reason I said, which is we are going to power up the Chinese economy so they are a much more formidable enemy to the United States. That is the last thing we need to do. Now, with respect to, hold on a second, let me finish. You had a chance. With respect to Ukraine and Putin there's no question that Putin invaded, okay? He is the aggressor. However, the question you have to ask is why? And the fact of the matter is that, first of all, we fomented a coup in Ukraine in 2014. This is your democracy spreading that you like, is all of a sudden we got these NGOs and we got Victoria Nuland from the State Department in there basically fomenting these coups. It doesn't work out quite the way you think, J. Cal. That's problem number one, okay? Then we try to run NATO right up to Russia's border, okay? And you expect them just to accept that because we're a benevolent superpower. That's not the way the real world works. Putin was tremendously threatened by that, and it wasn't just him. It was all Russian elites. Read the Bill Burns memo from 2008, Nyet means Nyet. He explains that even the liberal elements within Russia were tremendously threatened by NATO expansion. That is what basically poisoned diplomatic relations between the United States and Russia, and it was a major cause of this war. Now, listen, just because you don't think it's provocative doesn't mean that the Russians don't think it's provocative. You have to be able to put yourself in the other guy's shoes for just 1 second. And the fact of the matter is there were diplomatic steps that we could have taken to defuse this crisis in this war, and we didn't do it. And now look what's happened. Hundreds of thousands of people have been killed, and Ukraine's been destroyed. It's been absolutely destroyed. And let me tell you right now, it looks like they're losing this war. So I don't see where your superhero policy has gotten us except to make China richer and more powerful and to destroy Ukraine. That is where your naive idealism has gotten us.
Yeah, and I would say if left to your devices and you're not engaging and not presenting a united front against Putin, he will invade country after country. The West must fight for democracy. We must fight for human rights, even if it's uncomfortable. And you seem to think we provoked him to invade this country. He's a murdering dictator, authoritarian who has been murdering his own people and other people for his entire career, and he will continue to do so.
Let me clarify, because you're putting words in my mouth, okay? When you say that I think that we provoked him, what I believe is that we took actions that in Russian eyes were provocative.
Yes, you said we provoked it.
I'm saying that from their subjective point of view, they saw these actions as provocative. They said so. Listen, the Russian
which is what I said back to you. We provoked it is your position.
No. Yes. I just explained that's not the words I would use.
Hold on. His position is that in their eyes, they were provoked, Jason.
You're talking about, listen, you're talking about, no. What?
Oh, shit. Oh, boy.
You're like, what you're doing right now is like dishonest. I just explained the language that I would use.
Yes, we provoked them.
We took actions that in Russian eyes were provocative. There's a difference.
Yes, provocative, provoked. Yes, the act of provoking
just stop
them.
lying. Okay, it's getting to be too much.
Okay, let's move on. We're never going to agree on this, Sachs. Okay. And by the way, I'd like to remind the audience that nobody on this podcast is an expert on foreign policy. Sachs is not Henry Kissinger. You know, I'm not Obama. So
on last
take
week's
whatever
show,
we
hold
say
on a second, Jake,
with a grain
on
of
last
salt.
week's show, you had come around to my point of view. You said this war was a mistake. On the very last show, you said it was a disaster. And now you're basically...
No, hold on. Now you're putting words in my mouth.
Hold on, you're backsliding right back to your Legion of Doom.
No. I believe the West should present a united front, and we should hold the line with Russia invading other countries. That's my belief. I do not think we should be doing this solo. I think we should not be sending Biden. We should be sending 15 leaders of countries to Ukraine. We should be sending people in, and we should be doing a peace process. And I think the military-industrial complex, largely driven by the GOP, is what's at fault here. They want to use these weapons. They want to replenish the supply, and they want to regime change. I don't think we should be going for regime change. I think we should be building bridges. So my point is a little more subtle. My point is a little more subtle.
You're doing it right there. You're basically engaging in this ridiculous rhetoric that we've seen in the media, which is that if you simply want a more realistic American strategy because you believe it benefits America, that you're automatically accused of somehow being a Putin sympathizer. No, you're doing what the mainstream media has done.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm not.
I just said to you, it should be the entire West as a group, as a bloc, negotiating with Putin.
What do you think?
Peace. And
what do you think, Jason?
It's fine for Xi Jinping to be part of that. I welcome Xi Jinping, Germany, and the United States, and France, and the UK all getting together and trying to get these two parties to settle.
What do you think we're doing? What do you think we're doing right or wrong with China right now?
Right or wrong with China?
Yeah, what do you think we're doing right and wrong, or right, wrong, or?
I think we should be in discussions with them consistently. I don't believe we should be isolating them. I think we should be looking for areas we can collaborate on, the environment, technology.
But you agree with the CHIPS Act. You agree with basically onshoring and nearshoring all the critical infrastructure we need. Is that?
I think we should not be dependent on any foreign. We should have energy security. We should have medical technology. Of course, yes. But I think every country should. I think China should have that. We should have it. Every country should aspire to be resilient and not be dependent on another country. And being dependent on a dictator like Germany was on Putin, or we were with China for medicines or for medical equipment or chips, we do not want to be in that position ever.
Let me ask one question, just on Ukraine, just for a second, Jake Al. Would you be willing, in order to achieve a peace deal for Ukraine, would you be willing to agree to two things? Number one, that Ukraine would be a neutral country instead of part of NATO. And number two, that we would recognize Crimea being part of Russia. Would you be willing to give those two things?
I think that's not up to me. I think it's up to the people of Ukraine and Russia to sort this out. And it's up for the West to set the table for them to do it. And part of setting the table for them to do it is to make it more painful for them to stay at this war. So if they are told, if you keep fighting over these things and you don't come to a resolution between those two parties who have to live with that resolution, that is the uncomfortable thing that will force them. And that could be China, us, and India all working together, all of us working together to force those two parties into a solution that works for them.